up, everybody? Welcome to the East Coast Running Goal podcast. I'm Niners Jess, along with Ty Alston, Maddie B, aka Sourdough Matthew, who was live on NFL radio this afternoon. We'll get to that later on. And your girl Bex will be joining us shortly. What's going on, Faithful?
Hello, friends.
Doing good. How you guys doing?
Doing awesome. It is Wednesday, March 12th. It is the start of the new league year of 2025. We have a lot to talk about, but first we're brought to you by Faithful Gear. For your customized 49ers gear, go to faithfulgear209.com. Made for the faithful, by the faithful. And without further ado, let's bring on our special guest. We got from Larry Krueger from the Krug Show. Krug, what's going on? Welcome back.
I'm the special guest? Oh, my God. Who would ever have thought? Guys, great to be back with you. I think this might be my third stop by on the on this pod, so I'm glad to be here. Good to see all of you guys, and let's start chopping it up. There's awful lot to get to, that's for sure.
Yes, there is. I'd like to start with the front office though first, because I'm a little concerned that Jed York put his foot down. Kyle, coach, John Lynch run the team. Should we be concerned about that? Him getting involved?
That's a great question. It's hard to say, right? On one hand, I don't really have any problems with any of the moves that they've made thus far. I don't know how you guys feel about it, but I don't have any problems with any of the moves they've made. I just don't. I love Greenlaw. I wanted him back, but the price got crazy. I wanted to see Joey Bosa here, but the price got greater or higher than I would have paid. And a lot of these guys that people are so, a lot of hand wringing about the departures. I don't share that. I don't know. We could go chapter and verse and quote, as far as guy after guy, but I just don't see the great player that they're moving on from that they just got to have. I see older players. I see hurt players. I see players that are getting offers like Aaron Banks. That's, well above what I think he's worth.
Yeah.
And so there you go. I really don't have a problem with any of the moves the 49ers have made to this point. I expected this to happen. We all knew Purdy's contract. They were going to try to pay him. You go from paying a quarterback $900,000 to whatever, 55 million, 60 million, whatever it's going to be. There's going to be, an adjustment there. And I none of the players that they moved on from was I like, oh God, I was hoping to see Greenlaw come back because I do believe he's kind of a culture player. And I think he's the kind of guy that, this is an awesome linebacker day 3 draft. And to me, there's great opportunity to rebuild your whole linebacking core on the 3rd day of this draft. And I was hoping Dre would be around to kind of usher those guys in and kind of show them the way. But, I wanted to pay him like 1 year, 10 million or less. And he got 3-year deal for between 11 and 12 million per. So, it's kind of the same way I felt about the DJ Jones deal with Denver a few years ago. It's like, I love DJ, didn't want to see him go, but if somebody wants to pay him that, you wish him well. And I think you get down the road. And that's how I feel about Greenlaw. So I don't really have a problem. And I'm kind of intrigued by a few of the signings they've had so far. So maybe I'm not the guy to talk to, or maybe I'm just not seeing it the way other people are.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I think the one that really hurt was Dre. As far as Aaron Banks, Jalen Moore, Elijah Mitchell, Talanoa Hufanga, Mooney Ward. As far as I'm concerned, they could all go. Juice as well. But I don't know. What do you think, Ty, Maddie?
I'm in agreement with Larry. Dre was the one that was like most felt just because of the emotional leadership he brings to the team, that kind of demeanor. You want a guy like that around. Plus the tandem of him and Fred, it brings back the days of Bowman and Willis. We had all that nostalgia going for us. But for the price and his injury history, it's like, yeah, we weren't going to pay it. you wish him well. And he's right. It's the same dynamic with DJ Jones. I love DJ Jones, but it was sad to see him go. We weren't going to pay it, right? Everyone else is like, okay, it's not that bad. It's not. And, I think there's just a lot of overreaction to the amount of guys who are leaving. But like to see guys getting torn up over Jalen Moore leaving, Elijah Mitchell, like
Elijah Mitchell was still on the roster. Like, I'm shocked.
Enough is enough.
Like,
okay?
he missed 80% of the games the last 2 years. Like, him, Joel Embiid, and Kawhi Leonard have probably like teamed.
They hang out together.
Maybe do like half of an NFL season together, right?
For all I know, you're Elijah Mitchell sourdough. I haven't seen Elijah in a while.
Exactly.
I mean, he could be you.
Yeah.
We don't know. Could have just gone full old man beard, gone crazy. You never know. Tell me you've never seen a team rebuild before on the fly without telling me you've never seen this before. And it's not even really rebuild. It's more of a retool. If you kind of look and see everything that has happened over the last, couple of years, this defense has been slipping. It's been slipping to a point that 2 defensive coordinators have been scapegoated over it so far. Steve Wilkes, I don't know, maybe he was the issue. I don't think he was. And I just think it was way too far gone at that point for Nick Sorensen last year. Like, that was a sheep herder and the sheep were already out of the field, right? That was pretty much it. Like, hey, see what you can do. Oh, people are injured. Oh, more people are injured. Oh, hey, good luck. And that was really it, right? So now they're going to start over again. They're going to get guys that fit Robert Saleh's scheme. They're not getting a lot of the guys, the day one guys that everybody thought they were going to get. The kid from the Jets and Dahlman and all those guys. They didn't get any of those guys. Instead, they're getting other ones that are a little less expensive. Really like the DeMarcus Robinson signing, but I find it interesting because it makes you wonder what they think of Jacob Cowing, or it makes you wonder what they think of Brandon Ayuk. Also, how much longer before Jawan Jennings is going to need a contract extension? This is going to be the final year of his deal, and you can definitely tell that he's going to be underpaid on the market now, especially if he's going to be used more. How much do they believe in Ricky Pearsall? They signed Luke Farrell. Does this mean you're going to play more 12 personnel, more 21 personnel, as folks heard me talk about earlier today? There's a lot of different things to unpack here with a lot of different things, and I'm just excited to see how it goes. But a lot of the things that they're attacking, nobody has complained about the tight end 2 more than me. So, you know what? If they think Luke Farrell helps solve the tight end 2 problem, if that frees up George Kittle to be available for more pass reception, pass routes or whatever, sign me the hell up, man. Like, Eric Saubert did not move the needle. Ross Dwelly didn't move the needle. Charlie Warner didn't move the needle. So if Luke Farrell can just come in and be competent, and he seems to be a really good pass blocker based on all the grades and all of the tape I've seen so far, like, shout out. And they didn't pay a ton of money to get him. You know what I mean? Like, they didn't spend an obscene amount of money on a guy like Jalen Moore to play tackle. Guys, they think Jalen Moore can play tackle. Like, come on. For God's sakes. Like, that's what they're doing. They're kind of slumming at the tackle point because they're desperate, right? So that's why they shifted Joe Thuney out of town. This whole league right now is interesting, and this gives them a chance to see what they've got, kind of reshuffle the deck of cards around Brock and kind of go from there, right? Like, this is going to be Brock's team moving forward if they're going to be signing him long term in all likelihood. So got to play to his strengths, right? You're not shoehorning him onto the team anymore. You're building the team around him. And I think that's something that people have lost in the shuffle here a little bit.
As a huge George Kittle fan, I sure hope that Farrell is good blocking so it could free up George Kittle.
I think that's the plan. I mean, you have Kittle. He's one of the best receiving tight ends in football. And yet, week after week after week, Shanahan, I'm sure, when he's game planning, is like, man, we got to keep this guy in the block. Why? Because the rest of the tight ends on the roster, for the most part, are receivers. Tongas
really
is
nice
a receiver.
Guys.
And Braden Willis, Mason Pline, Tongas. I mean, they're receiving tight ends. You need somebody who can move somebody in the run game. I will say this. I think this is an outstanding outstanding tight end draft. And I think this is one of the best tight end drafts I've seen. There's a couple guys that are not going to be drafted that the Niners have already met with at tight end that I think are big-time players. Rivaldo Fairweather from Auburn got 84-inch wingspan. Didn't start playing football until like really late, like junior year in high school. He's really raw. But if you saw him, this guy moves people in the run game. He's got sticky hands. He's probably going to go undrafted. Jalen Conyers from Texas Tech, who started at ASU, one of my favorite tight ends. I saw a mock today. He's going like second half of the 7th round. So there's going to be a tight end or two in this draft that they're going to be looking at as well. The Farrell pick is interesting. I had never heard of Farrell, and I, feel like I know everybody in the league, and I had never heard of Farrell. So, you know what? I had to do a deep dive myself and kind of check him out, and he looks like, Charlie Warner, right? Like he looks like a guy who's a try-hard blocker who really ranked pretty highly in run blocking. So I'll say this, you got a new special teams coordinator, Brant Boyer. That's one of the areas you're trying to desperately improve. And you gotta sign some guys with some special teams pedigree if you're going to get better on special teams. And it looks like they've done that. So that's one area they've upgraded.
Sticking with special teams, a lot of people, with everyone being released or whatnot, are pissed that Jake Moody is still on the team. So your thoughts on that?
I mean, he's under contract. He's on his rookie deal still. So he's, they own his rights. But, I got to think that they're going to bring in a veteran to compete with him. And hopefully it's a real good veteran that has a good chance of beating him out. I'm done with, I'd rather have a Ray Wersching type kicker. I'd rather have a Robbie Gould type kicker. What is that? That's a kicker that can't make it from 50 plus, but is money from inside of 45. I got to have the money veteran kicker. I can't take these chances. I'd rather know what part of the field I need to go for it and what part of the field I can get 3 points. But Jake is just the inconsistency, and I don't know if it's because of the nature of the injury and he was feeling. I did an interview with him the week before he came back. I said, "How you feeling?" He goes, "I feel good." I go, "Is there any pain?" He's like, "I just have pain right on the point where I sprained my ankle." Okay, that was no big deal, except I didn't follow up. I didn't follow up that week. And then the next week when he missed a couple, it was like, "Well, wait, what happened? I thought you were feeling good." He's like, "Yeah, but I've got pain right on the part where I kick the ball." Well, if you've got pain on the part where you kick the ball, then why do we activate your ass? You know what I mean? We should have just waited a few more weeks. Matthew Wright and the other guy were like 6 for 6 or whatever. Instead, you're running to get Jake Moody back in there, and then, he immediately starts missing kicks, and it was like a tale of two seasons. He had a good first half. He rolled the ankle pretty badly, and then after that, he was a circus. So I don't know about you guys, but I'm done. First of all, I am so done. I will throw a conniption if they draft a kicker or a punter. I will absolutely storm the building. I mean, I cannot listen to them or watch them draft another kicker or another punter. Hold tryout camps from May through July. Hold them every single damn day if you have to, and find your kicker that way. Find your punter that way. Adam Vinatieri, one of the greatest clutch kickers I've ever seen, undrafted. Tucker, who's now got his problems. He was like a 7th round guy or undrafted. Yeah. You don't have to take a 3rd round kicker. You're not ahead of the game if you're taking a kicker on day 2 of the draft. You're not smarter than everybody else. You're not.
Larry, I told this story about when I went to the Miami game and I saw him absolutely lose it because the Miami Dolphins cheerleaders were working out within like 5 yards of him and might accidentally hit the kicking thing. And he moved it from a 50-yard kick to a 40-yard kick, and then he doinked it right off the upright. And I'm like, I looked at my daughter and I'm like, that dude is not, he's cooked. He is absolutely psychologically cooked right now.
And I've
he
interviewed
was
him.
bothered
He's not
and
squirrely.
upset about it. Yeah.
He's not a squirrely guy when you interview him. It's not like you're sitting there going, "Oh my goodness." There's a calm, there's a confidence. So, you know, my sense of fairness. It's like if this were my kid, if I forget that I'm a Niner content creator, and we'll just say I was Bob Moody or something, and that's my son. I think I would want him to get one more shot. But you know what? As a 49er fan, I'm done with the drama, man. I am done with the drama. Go get yourself a mediocre veteran kicker who's boring and who's going to make kicks. And I don't need the strongest leg in the league. I don't need a guy who can make it from 65. I don't care. I don't care. I want a boring veteran kicker. Give me somebody. Give me, the same. I want the opposite of what I want for a head coach. I hate retreads and guys who just keep getting recycled. But with kickers, give me a recycled retread.
Give me somebody who can go 100% on extra points, right?
And just give me somebody I've heard of who, has made some kicks in the NFL, whose entire career is not hanging in the balance on the next kick. Somebody who's got some durability to his personality, some durability to his presentation. I don't want to see somebody whose confidence is hanging on every kick.
You talk about not drafting a kicker or a punter. They actually met with a punter at the Hula Bowl.
I saw that. I saw that.
If you're going to meet with someone or meet like a punter, you want to meet him at the Hula Bowl. So that's
yeah, over a Mai Tai.
Place to do it. Yeah.
Right.
Let's just talk punting in theory as we have some, coconut cocktail.
Hey, Ty, what do you think of Jake Moody?
It's a confidence thing. It's like we said, it's a tale of two, like Larry said, it's a tale of two seasons, if you will. First part of the season, he was money. He has to make a tackle on a kickoff, thanks special teams coverage. Hurts his ankle, and as we find out, it's probably still been hurting him for the rest of the season. Not only that, he comes back and the whole mechanics of place kicking has changed because now he has a brand new holder, right? Like people forget about that. The whole mechanics of kicking, it's a 3-team system. And if any part of that is out of whack, it ain't working. So it was a lot going against them. And I think toward the end of the season, especially in that Lions game, Kyle Shanahan did not help his confidence at all. So he is where he is. I'm with you, though. This is the time where this new special team coach bring in some competition. Every other position has competition. You bring in some competition. You see if we're getting first half Jake Moody or second half Jake Moody. Can he beat out a veteran? Can he beat out anyone? Where's his headspace at? Where is his kicking game at? Like, take him inside of Levi's. Can you make a kick against this wind? Let the competition unfold, and you select the best person for the job.
Yeah, I agree. Every position needs competition. What about Mitch Wishnowsky? Cruz?
I know he had some injuries last year. I really like Wishnowsky. I mean, I think Wishnowsky's a top tier punter if you can just get him healthy. I don't know what happened health wise to him. I'm hoping that, he can be back. I mean, to me, I don't study the stats on the kickers or the punters, but it seemed to me that Mitch Wishnowsky had a great ability to stick it inside the 20. You know what I mean? He seems like his touch, I don't know about his leg strength, but as far as his touch is pretty good. And I've interviewed him a couple times in the locker room, and he's real confident. Like, he's real confident. Like, you would think he almost invented punting the way he talks about it. He knows exactly how he wants to do it, where he wants to put it on his foot, what he's trying to get accomplished. I mean, he's a cerebral guy who I think has a lot of talent. So, I mean, I'm just exhausted by special teams, period. It's like, get it right. And I feel like I'm Shanahan on this one. I feel like Shanahan's got the same mindset. It's like, I don't know what the hell's going to work, but just let's get it right. I think
Don't
Kyle would
suck,
literally do
right?
whatever he needs to do to make sure he had a pretty good special teams. He knows there's value there. He knows it's important. And I think that a lot of people are critical of him for why his special teams are bad. I don't know that I personally think that's probably not a fair criticism. But they've checked every box, guys. I mean, they've gone for specialists. They've gone for the 3rd round kicker, the 4th round punter. They've tried to sign free agents that are, special teamers solely. I mean, they've made the investments, and they've continued to in this offseason. Now they brought in Brant Boyer. Hopefully Boyer can be, the solution, because I mean, I thought the Niners couldn't get any worse when they went from Hightower to Schneider. And then they did. They got worse.
Yeah.
So now I think they really can't get worse. But I guess they were 31st. So there's only one level of that they can get that's worse. But I'm hoping that Saleh, that getting Saleh, that we just happen to luck into a very good special teams coach in Boyer. We'll find out, I guess.
So, Brian Culp has a comment. If the team can't score touchdowns, that isn't the kicker's fault. If the team can't continue to get first downs, that's not the kicker's fault. What do you think?
Stop stealing my thunder, Brian.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not putting the entire season on the kicker. I'm not. And if I am, if it came across that way, that's not what I meant.
No.
I'm not putting the whole thing on the kicker. And there's no question about it. The 49ers, okay, so I went at the end of the year and I did my deep dive on the season, right? And it's painful, right? Because I mean, I'm watching the all 22. I'm cross comparing the stats, the box scores. I'm looking for my notes that I made from practice through the week. I'm trying to give it 100%, right? And what my takeaway was when I rewatched and went through the numbers and took a real close look at it was that the Niners have regressed in a couple areas. The defensive tackles stand out the most to me. Their defensive tackle play 2-3 years ago was so much better than what it was this year. This year, it was embarrassing. They couldn't stop anybody in short yardage. They couldn't stop anybody on the goal line. They couldn't come off blocks and make tackles against the run. They didn't put heat on the quarterback. I mean, their defensive tackle play has dropped several levels, and that's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two, they were horrible on special teams. And takeaway number three is this is a slow football team. When the Niners went to Super Bowl 54 against Kansas City, I read an article that week. The Niners and the Chiefs that week were, according to GPS, were the 2 fastest teams in pro football. And speed is a big part of the game. And the Niners are so slow now that it's unbelievable. And that is the area they need to work on. Yeah, they're bad on special teams. They got to get better. That's obvious. But the lack of defensive tackle talent is unbelievable. And the lack of speed at linebacker, at corner, at receiver, at running back, at tight end. I mean, they're just a slow football team. They are slow. They can't score. They don't have quick strike ability because they don't have the vertical speed. I was really happy to see Demarcus Robinson because even though he doesn't run a great 40 time, he's a downfield receiver who's made some plays. They need more speed across the board. And it's really noticeable, especially on that second level. They used to lean on Bowman and Willis, and then now this latest addition with Greenlaw and Warner, and they don't have any of that second level speed anymore. They have to, and it's a great linebacker draft. I think this is the year to draft 3 or 4 linebackers on day 3 and really retool that thing. So as much as I'm bummed about Greenlaw leaving, it really didn't jive with how I look at the draft this year. I see the greatest value is at linebacker on day 3. And I think that's where you build this thing up.
You mentioned the draft with linebacker, but what about CJ Mosley from the Jets? They just released him today.
I don't think that fits the mindset of younger, cheaper, healthier. I mean, he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. He was good in Baltimore. He was good at Bama. He's good. I mean, he's a good player, and Robert Sala's got experience with him. But no, I want to go younger, faster, cheaper, and I got to resist the Joey Bosa's. I got to resist the C.J. Mosley's. I just think I think really what we're seeing here, guys, is we're seeing that the 49ers, that the team that Brock showed up and he wasn't really expected. He was a pleasant surprise, but it wasn't expected. This team was the team that was built around Jimmy Garoppolo. And now Garoppolo's moved on. Now they're going with Purdy. Now they need to kind of reshuffle the deck and get guys that are going to be here for Brock Purdy's career. I mean, he was the young guy with all these veterans. Now they need to get some guys who are going to be here through his timeline. And linebacker is probably at the top of that list on the defensive side of the ball. You got to rebuild your awesome linebacking core. I mean, look at Philly. They won the Super Bowl. They had Zach Baun. He was the all-pro linebacker, and they got him. They put him into their mix. They were horrendous defensively a year ago. They added a couple guys in the secondary. They added that guy on the second level, and they were spectacular. And, of course, Fangio. Niners bring in Saleh, and I think if they do the same kind of thing, plug a few holes on defense, I think they could be back there this year. I know there's a lot of people think, oh, my God, no, the Niners are taking this is a rebuild. I don't see it that way.
So how do you see it? Retooling, reset?
There's a lot of pressure on them to draft well, but I think this is there was a great podcast this week by Todd McShay. You guys know McShay, right? The former ESPN guy. And McShay made the point that a lot of his scouting buddies think that this year, the 25 draft, and next year, the 26 draft, are the two drafts to really load up on. Why? Because he says that the combination of the NIL and the COVID-19 has kept a kind of a log jam of players. There's guys who have been in college for 6-7 years. And so if you look at the numbers, there's a lot of depth in this draft, and there's a lot of depth in next year's draft. And the Niners have gotten the maximum compensatory selections in both of these drafts. And this is their opportunity right now to build this thing up, because McShay believes that normally you get starters first, second, third round. He thinks that teams in this draft and next year's draft will be able to find starters into the middle of the sixth round. And I agree with that. That's exactly when I'm looking at this field. I'm seeing some really, really intriguing D linemen, linebackers, running backs, tight ends, guys that should go in the third or fourth round that are going to be there late on day two. So this is a great opportunity for the Niners to, have they had a monster draft last year. If they could put together a 15-man draft class this year and maybe do it again next year, I think they could set themselves up for a great run of 49er football in the 4 or 5 years that follow. But it's a big if, right? I mean, it's hard to hit in the draft.
I agree with Brandon's comment. These offseason moves make me believe they're going to invest in the trenches in the draft and less in DBs and skill players. What do you guys think?
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, I agree with that. I don't know. I think they are going to take a shot on a running back or a wide receiver or a tight end of note. I could see them adding a skill position guy. But yeah, O-line, I think you need power blockers and you need guys who can dial up some heat on the quarterback. And anybody in the front seven on defense and offensive line. I think that's where I would want to build.
Ty, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. You can clearly see what the game plan is, right? What's the one thing they haven't addressed in free agency yet? But what's deep in the draft? It's the trenches. So they'll go that way. And John Lynch laid it out. He said they want to get younger and cheaper. Well, where do you do that? Via the draft. So I'm sure they have their eyes on a bunch of guys. Like Larry said, this year and next, you see the blueprint being laid out of what they're going to do. And this regime has been here before, not to the extent it was in 2017. That was a rebuild.
That was
For
studs,
those out there,
man.
for those out there with short-term memories, that was a rebuild. This isn't. But they had the pedigree to go out, pluck players from the draft, and get this thing built and moving forward. So they're definitely going to be targeting, like I said, the trenches in the draft and get younger and cheaper for the future. And like Larry said, it's to build around Barack and make sure guys are here for his tenure.
Younger, cheaper, and faster. Maddie, what do you think?
George Kittle, Fred Warner, Brock Purdy. It's pretty good, that's a pretty good homegrown crew, right? You can put Diamador Lenore in there if you'd like.
Yeah.
Yeah, Trent Williams was traded for, but he's definitely one of the pillars here. Like you take those guys, you didn't really have that in 2017, right? You had Drew Staley.
None of them were there.
Right? Yeah, Drew Staley.
that
was it.
Yeah.
So they've already got a track record of making more with less, right? So I feel pretty confident that this thing can get turned around quick in a hurry. Look, people thought the Rams were cooked a couple of years ago. Now, some people would think that the prohibitive favorite for the NFC West, signing Adams and all the things that they did. Vegas might not see that, but that might be a segment for another time.
It's funny you said that because I'm looking at the Niner odds right now. DraftKings Sportsbook. The Niners are plus 105 to win the NFC West. That's the favorite. The 49ers at this moment are the favorite to win the NFC West. The 49ers are plus 700, 7-1 to win the NFC. They're the third choice. And they are plus 1,400, 14-1, the sixth choice to win Super Bowl 60 at Levi's. So, I mean, this idea that, they're some disaster team, they're a bottom third team. Vegas doesn't think so. And they haven't done nothing in this offseason that makes you go, wow. So, so obviously they feel like the 49ers offseason story is yet to be completely written.
Correct.
Yeah, I could get behind that. And look at all the players that we lost, and this year we have a favorable schedule. Yeah. So Larry, how many D tackles or DNs do you think we're going to draft?
I've done a lot of mocks. I would say 5. I think you need, okay. So let's just, walk through it a little bit. Okay. So they have the 11th pick. In my mind, this is a trade back situation. Okay. I would trade back from 11 into the mid-teens and take whoever's there between Kenneth Grant, the big Michigan defensive tackle, and Walter Nolan, the big Ole Miss, former Texas A&M defensive tackle, in the teens. Okay, that's how I'd start it. There's a lot of rumor. My buddy Tony Pauline, who's a pretty good source, last year he said the Niners were going to draft Isaac Guerendo in the 4th round or 3rd round, I think, and I think he went to the Niners in the 4th round, so he had that pretty close. He had a report the other day that the Niners love Olawufemi Oladejo from UCLA, who's the edge rusher, started at Cal, transferred. And he says the Niners are going to go for him in the 2nd round. Now, that might be a little early, but if they trade back in the 2nd round, I could see them doing that and taking Oladejo. And to me, if you started your draft with either Walter Nolan or Kenneth Grant up front and Oladejo, I think you're going a great distance to, recharging and re-energizing that defensive front. I'm a big fan of Kenneth Grant. I know people look at him and say, oh, well, Mozzie Smith, they're not the same guy. Mozzie Smith went to Dallas in the 1st round. It was a terrible reach, and he was an incredible workout guy, and big, strong, fast. But Kenneth Grant's good. I mean, if you watch the Ohio State game, this guy is a good player. He's 6'3", he's 330, he's got great pursuit ability. He's strong. I mean, Mason Graham was great, and Mason Graham's probably going to go higher. But I think he's kind of topped out. I think Grant made Graham's job easier this year because he is just such a behemoth. He can, and also I really believe that in this rebuild for the defense, I think you go big bodies up front, and I think you go faster, smaller, almost safety size linebackers on that second level. I think that there's been a subtle shift in the way teams defend, and I think that second level defender who used to be 250 with a big neck roll, that guy's now 215 to 220, and is a safety and is a pursuit guy and is a breakdown in space athlete. So I think that's the way I would build it. Build a big defensive front, see if you can add some other pieces around the edges, and then go linebacker in day 3.
Can I ask a question, guys? This is going to be kind of off the board a little bit, but I want to ask your opinion. It looked like the market was really getting ready to load up and throw some major assets at either the Raiders or the Browns if Myles Garrett or Max Crosby had been made available. In the spirit of rebuild, if someone came to the 49ers with a ridiculous offer for Nick Bosa? Yeah, we're trying to rebuild the defensive line, but again, younger, faster, cheaper, right? Could you reutilize those assets in a different area? If somebody is overpaying and looking for somebody, like, he's probably the only one that would actually be. I highly doubt he would be on the market, but if somebody was trying to sneak attack something, he's the only one contractually that would be able to go, since the other two just signed new deals.
I mean, it's a reasonable question. I mean, I did a stream Monday with Grant Cohn. He was asking this question: is it's like if you say to 49er fans, we had let's say we had 25 49er fans in here, and we said to them, "Hey guys, man, the Niners should have traded Ayuk last year." I think everybody would be like, yeah, hell yeah. If we said to them, you know what, guys, the Niners should never have extended Debo. They should have traded him a couple years ago when they had the chance. People are like, yeah. Mm-hmm. But if you said today, dump CMC, dump Kittle, dump Bosa, no, you know what I mean? And I'm sure you guys might feel the same way. I kind of feel the same way. But that's kind of, it's easy to, when a guy's regressed, it's easy to go, yeah, we should have dumped that guy a year ago. It's way harder to be like, hey, we're going to get rid of this guy a year ahead of time when everybody wants him, when everybody wants George Kittle, when everybody wants CMC, when everybody wants Nick Bosa. And I'm not even sure that Bosa and CMC are even there anymore. They're probably beyond that point. Because Bosa makes so much, CMC's got the double Achilles, and he didn't play much last year. So that ship's probably sailed for those guys too. But you know what I'm saying? It's like everybody can see the wisdom in trading Ayuk or Debo ahead of time now, but they didn't want to do it last year. And nobody wants to trade any of their good players this year either, because people want to win. So I do understand it, but it is kind of a study of human nature. It's like, we can understand the need to get out from underneath these older players that aren't as good once they've shown regression, but it's hard as heck to be like, you know what, they're likely to regress. Let's move on now.
It's that Bill Walsh
hard
thing.
To do. Yeah,
trying to catch that year early when you can kind of maximize that, right? Like, Kyle ran out of the office last year to stop a trade for Ayuk to Pittsburgh for a second and a third. If somebody called up this year, if somebody called Kyle in the next 5 minutes offering a second and a third for Brandon Ayuk, he would probably run the deal up to the office himself. So, like, a lot of things can change in a short period of time. That's why I was wondering. Like, it just sometimes it even seems too like some of the guys are getting rid of. I don't know if it was. I almost wonder if the Devondre Campbell thing last year, he was totally an outlier, but I don't even think a guy like that would have ever snuck in the locker room previously, right? And he just kind of fell in because of a series of unfortunate events. And I don't know. It seems like they were trying to do just more than I want to get rid of contracts and do some things. It seems like they were really trying to get some attitudes out of there too.
Yeah, I literally did a stream about 5 weeks before he went crazy and said, this guy, I've been in enough NFL locker rooms and been around enough NFL players to know the personality types. And that personality type that he had was like, you know what? Get him the hell out of here ASAP, or you're going to have major problems. And I said it 3 or 4 times on different streams. people were like, Krug, you're being kind of harsh. And then I asked Sorensen about him. I'm like, what do you like about this player? And he's like, he's a veteran, he's a good leader, and all this stuff. And it was just all such garbage.
Really?
Yeah.
And in reality, he's a good
Wow.
leader, he's a veteran, he's a strong leader.
Typical answers, the typical garbage.
And it's like, I'm sitting there looking at Nick Sorensen going, what are you even talking about? This guy has, he had such it struck me. It's like he could not deal with the twilight of his career. And that's what happened in Green Bay. The reason he was unhappy in Green Bay is because they were straight with him and they told him he had lost a step and he didn't want to hear it. And sure enough, and he was a placeholder here for Greenlaw. Everybody knew it except for him. And then when it was time for Greenlaw to come back, everybody wanted to see him back except for Devondre. And those timeouts that they blew, back-to-back timeouts that they blew with 12 men on the field penalties. Remember that in the Green Bay game? That was all him refusing to come off the field. And they covered it. They covered for him at the presser when we asked him about it the next week. What happened there, Nick? Why did you guys blow timeouts there? And it's like, it was a miscommunication. Yeah, here's the communication. Hey, Devondre, get your ass off the field. And Devondre said, no, I'm not leaving the field. That was your miscommunication. So, these guys cover for each other all the time. And it's like, I lost it in the middle of the year. I'm like, I'm asking Forster about Brendel. I love Brendel. I'm asking Shanahan about Sorensen. I love Sorensen. I'm asking Sorensen about Campbell. I love Campbell. Finally, one day in the middle of the year, I'm like, this team sucks. Everybody loves everybody. It's a gigantic goddamn kumbaya, and they can't beat anybody. They can't beat anybody at all. And the best win they had all year was Tampa at home with no Godwin and no Evans. That was the best win they had all year. So, it got a little tough to stomach everybody just cover. The CYA was a little thick this year. Everybody covering everybody and nobody really playing ball. It was tough to watch.
Jess, did we lose you? You there?
Yep.
Jess has had enough.
She lost video. We talked about 59 too much. She's like, I can't take it.
Yeah, she left. She just Antonio Brown the hell out of here.
We can hear her, we just can't see her.
Exactly.
She's from the void. It's totally fine.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. Can you hear me?
Okay.
I can hear you just fine.
You can hear me loud and clear.
Your stuff just went away. Hit your camera button and then hit it again, because I had to do the same thing with mine earlier. It was really weird. That did not help anything.
This happens to me basically once every 5 or 6 streams, so it's just the way it is.
It's just
every show we have some type of weird technical issue. One of us,
and it's never me either.
Yeah, never her,
never.
Now it's her.
Wow,
way to go, Jess.
This is
picking
new.
Picking up the mantle.
We can still hear you. So
yeah, we can still hear you.
Fine. All right.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
All right. So shout out to everybody in the chat. You guys are awesome. Don't forget to like and subscribe to both channels. Larry, I want to talk a little bit about wide receivers. Right now we have Jacob Cowing, Ricky Pearsall, Brandon Ayuk, and there's talk about Tariq Owens. We have Demarcus Robinson, which I don't know how much of a sure thing he will be because of his off the field stuff.
The DUI he's got.
The DUI,
he's going to miss a game, probably 3 games.
So what do you think of the wide receiver
room? One, I think Robinson does help. Okay. I think he does add something to the mix there. He's made plays down the field. He's a veteran. He can run a little bit, even though his 40 time said 4.6. But if you look at his, to me, he plays faster than that.
He plays way faster than that. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's a downfield guy. I mean, he makes plays down the field. Overall, I would say, okay, Jennings, big, strong, powerful possession receiver. Ayuk probably isn't going to play. I don't know how you guys feel, but I think John Lynch told us at the combine that Ayuk's going to be traded. So I don't
think he makes it to April 1st, Fleur. I was actually going to ask you that. I don't think he makes it to April 1st. And the reason for that is the way they built this contract, for those who haven't read up on it. Like, there's kind of like a parachute clause, basically, where they can get out of it and they can save $110 million in the future. And if they're already eating up a bunch of cap space, they'd only have $17 million in dead cap space for him, and they'd save $110 million in the future. I honestly think if New England keeps striking out with receivers, or they keep getting bid out by, the Pittsburgh Steelers of the world or something like that, I could totally see them swooping back in again after last year, because they had a deal in place and they would have offered him a higher contract. Well, now he can't veto it. They could probably get him for less, and he can block, and he's going to have a chip on his shoulder. Like he'd be a perfect, like, angry a-hole in a Mike Vrabel team. So I could totally see them coming in to kind of swoop in for something like that. And people are going to be like, wow, I can't believe you give up Ayuk for a fifth. You could have got rid of him for a second or third. Well,
they're going to grumble anyway. Yeah.
Something happened during that whole negotiation, and I feel like that whole thing has changed the tenure of the way the front office and players and deals and things are interacting moving forward. I don't know why, but that one just seemed to linger, and there was a lot of hard feelings for both sides on that one. I don't know why. I just feel like the true story has never really come out on that one, to be quite honest.
He was an a-hole at the end of it. You know why?
I know why, but like,
why?
Well, the whole shorts thing too was like, I'm going to wear red shorts.
It kind of goes back to what Larry was just saying, though, right? It's that CYA thing, right? There's all this dysfunction and ridiculousness sometimes, and it's like everything's fine, everything's great. It's just just multiple things. Like, death by 1,000 cuts, really, is what it seems like. But yeah, if he's on this roster on April 2nd, I will be stunned.
Okay, so they won 6 games last year. What happened? They had a bad run D. They were terrible in short yardage. They were awful on special teams. But also their receivers got no separation at all. They were 32nd in the NFL in receiver separation. So more so than the other positions, a wide receiver room's got to complement these guys have to complement one another. You can't have 5 guys that are like Juwan Jennings. You can't have 5 guys that are like Tyreek Hill, and nobody's everybody's a burner, but nobody can catch a 3rd and 6 pass. The Niners are the opposite. The Niners have a possession guy in Juwan Jennings. They have a chain mover type possession guy in Ricky Pearsall. Now you add Demarcus Robinson, gives you a little bit of a downfield threat. Cowing, I think, if he gets stronger, he's 170. He needs to be closer to 190. If he can put on that weight, I think he's going to emerge as a pretty good player. But if he doesn't put on the weight, I don't know, because he's pretty weak. And so I think when you look at their receiving core, they need the vertical. They need Elijah Moore from Cleveland, or Rondale Moore, or Tutu Atwell before he re-signed with the Rams. Or if you're going into this draft and you're trying to find somebody, they need somebody who can run. They need somebody who can run off the top of the coverage and make a big time play. I think the receiver they like is Isaiah Bond from Texas. Who I think is going to be a late second, or maybe between the late second and late third. He's going somewhere in that window. And I could see them, they have 2 picks in the 3rd round. I could see them using one of them on Bond. I think he's really interesting. They also worked out Trey Harris from Ole Miss, who's a really good receiver. Lane Kiffin said he thought he was the best receiver in the country. He was a high school quarterback who was the high school quarterback for Malik Neighbors. And then, has been a receiver at Ole Miss, and he's great. I mean, he's 6'2", he's 205 pounds. He runs pedestrian 4.54. He's not a burner, where Bond is more of a burner. So I would say they need some vertical. They need some vertical threats at receiver. They need some guys who can run. Dante Thornton from Tennessee, who ran 4.30, I think would be a phenomenal day 3 receiver. Elijah Badger from Florida ran in the 4.4s. I think he would be a steal. Jordan Watkins, I don't know if you've watched Ole Miss football, but Jordan Watkins against Arkansas this year, guys, had 8 catches for 254 yards and 5 touchdowns. You don't see that a lot in an SEC game, and he ran 4.37 at the combine, and he's projected to go late on day 3. So Jordan Watkins, I think they probably like. Rock Taylor, I know they met with from Memphis. He's a pretty exciting receiver with some speed and size. So I definitely think they're going to go receiver once in this draft. I'm not sure. Now that they got DeMarcus, it's less of a priority, but I definitely think they're going to add some speed at receiver.
Yeah. One thing I want to see, I think they'll add a receiver, and I hope that receiver is the big and fast mold, right? That's one thing they've never had. Every receiver is like 6'1" and under, right?
Yeah. I mean, that's why Dante Thornton would be great. Dante Thornton's like 6'4", 215 pounds. I mean, he's big.
Jennings is 6'4", 6'5", but he's not a burner. I think if you could get that 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" guy who can burn, now you're cooking with something. That's a totally different beast that you can put outside and really open this thing up.
It's a good call. Yeah. The other guy who fits that mold is Daquan Felton from Vatech, who, 6'4", 220, but he ran in the low 4.4s, and he's a vertical threat. So, I mean, and also they showed interest in both Jalen Noel and Jaden Higgins from Iowa State. Higgins is a big-bodied guy who also ran well, 6'4".
That was the guy I was going to mention.
217 pounds, and he ran in the 4.4s.
Program too, right?
Yeah, and he was good. I mean, he caught 80 or 90 balls. He caught like 8 or 9 touchdowns. I mean, I thought both those guys, Higgins and Noel, were both really good for Iowa State.
I actually like Noel from Iowa State.
You like him more? Yeah, I do too. I like Noel a little bit more. He's the smaller guy.
I like Higgins because I was a big Magnum PI fan growing up. So,
Chef wants to know how the Niners could cut Floyd without having assurances from Joey Bosa or a replacement in mind.
Well, it's funny. People are reacting strongly to what the Niners have done in the last couple of days. And I think, criticizing the Niners is totally fair. But to me, I would not be focusing on the guys that they cut in this round. And I'd be focusing on the 10 draft choices that they've missed on in the third round, just under this regime alone, or the 20 draft choices that they've missed on in rounds 1, 2, and 3 since 2017. The one thing I guess I don't get is this Kyle Shanahan's having, his power stripped away and John Lynch is being rewarded with more. It's like, well, wait a second. You've missed 20 times in the first 3 rounds of the draft. Do we need to go through it? Danny Gray, Trey Sermon, Ty Davis-Price, Dante Pettis, Jalen Hurd, CJ Beathard. I mean, I can go all day. 20 misses in the first 3 rounds, and we're blaming Kyle Shanahan. I think John Lynch has got to take some blame here, man. I mean, I like John Lynch. I respect the hell out of John Lynch, but you hit, you miss. You know what I mean? It's not as far as I'm concerned, it's not personal, it's business. And a miss is a miss. I mean, you can't miss 20 times in the first 3 rounds and not feel it. Why are the Niners where they're at? They're not where they're at because of their schedule or anything else other than that. You can't miss 20 times in the first 3 rounds and not feel it. They've made amazing trades. They've made some amazing day 3 picks. They've made some amazing after the draft college, undrafted free agent additions. They've done really, really well, but not on day 1 and day 2 with consistency. And if they're going to win a Super Bowl, you can't do it while missing in first, rounds 1, 2, and 3.
At least for the next 3 years, they don't have to worry about anybody going into their year 5 contract that's going to need an extension.
Which is kind of a backhanded compliment, right? Because that means that you haven't drafted well.
Well, in that case, there were 3 first-round picks missing. So,
yeah, that helps. That helps that equation.
Oh, 2. Part 2. Yes, 2.
You can go get Trey Lance again if you really believe in Trey Lance. He's out there.
Ty, what do you think?
About which point?
To go get Trey Lance again?
No, the Niners cutting Floyd without having assurances from Joey Bosa or a replacement.
Oh, that was people jumping the gun. That was people jumping the gun. Oh, we're cutting Floyd. And so that means we're definitely signing Joey Bosa. I mean, all the insiders said he wants
That's
to
what I
play with
said.
his brother. You
That's
know,
what I thought. That's what I thought.
But we know the Bosas are about their money first. I love you, bro, but I'm not paying for dinner for you. Pay for your own. So there you go. So I think people are looking so short term, right? Their short term thinking is on right now because the free agency and the new league year started, but they're not thinking long term. This same thing happened with our defensive coach search. Everyone thought short term, go out and sign this guy, go out and sign that guy. Robert Saleh still hasn't. Go out and sign that guy. Right? That same thing happened. The Niners had a plan. They stuck to it. Things seem to work out. I'm sure in this situation, they have a plan and they're sticking to it. Let's let it play out.
So we have a Purdy contract comment. Only mistake Niners are doing is paying Purdy. Krug, what do you think?
You don't have to pay him. You can let him sit and play for $5.2 million if you want, but it's going to cost you more in the future if he plays well. And if you don't believe, then don't pay him. But they sound like they do believe.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the regression this last year. Heck, I was the one who said to Kyle Shanahan late in the year, I said, how do you coach some of the over-aggressiveness out of Brock Purdy? And he's like, I don't agree. I don't think he's over-aggressive. It's like, really? Did you see the pass in the Rams game that went to JJ when you had three guys open underneath?
Yeah.
And it was first down, and there was no need for him to throw that. And he got super hyper-aggressive and threw the ball blindly with a rusher bearing down on him to JJ. And, JJ could have potentially broken it up, but it would have been an incredible effort if he had been able to do it. It's like, yeah, that kind of play showed that his dial was a little off. And I just think that it's a combination of all the, the pressure that he felt, taking away a lot of his weapons. It all kind of came down on him. And I'll tell you, it's going to be really interesting if they don't pay Brock Purdy and they do trade Brandon Ayuk and they don't have a great draft and the Niners go and win 5 games next year. That's going to be kind of dirty pool as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you got this guy and you're going to strip away all of his surrounding cast and then you're going to evaluate him on how he does. It's, to me, that I think that's not going to go well. I think that's not going to go well. And it's going to be interesting to see because Parag has been brought in with this idea that he's going to be ruthless. All right. But once again, a bad deal, the worst deal for the team signed in April or May is going to be better than the best deal for the team that's signed in September. You got to get this thing done in a reasonable amount of time. There has never been a quarterback. No team's ever won the Super Bowl with a quarterback that wasn't there for training camp. So they got to get this guy signed. I would have said today would have been the deadline. March 12th, the beginning of the new calendar year. But now I would say the minimum, you got to get this thing done by the minicamp after the draft. If he's not there for the minicamp after the draft, you got major problems.
So if the team goes, 5 wins next year, and that's a big if, or 6 wins, what happens to Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch?
Well, there are those that believe that they're on the hot seat now and that will usher them out. I don't agree with that. I think Jed likes them. He just doesn't like that Kyle sometimes, there's some personal things that, if a guy's getting his doghouse and, Jimmy Ward and others, and it's like he doesn't always make really sound decisions because I think there are a lot of his decisions are emotionally charged. And then, I think that he feels like John Lynch has gotten taken on the Bosa deal, on the Ayuk deal, on the Debo deal, and he wants Parag to run the contracts. But I think he still sees that that John does a good job in the draft, that Kyle's offense works, that he would be ripped from, coast to coast by every person in the league if he fired these guys. So I don't think they're on the hot seat. But I think if they have another 5-win year, they'll go into the next year on the hot seat. They win 5
Yeah,
games this year. They're on the hot seat going forward. Do you guys agree?
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think it depends on how the 5 wins or 12 losses come about. Like, is it another underperforming season like this one?
Well, we know it's going to be a young team.
You know what I mean? I
So
know it's a young team,
it's
but
going to be
like
a young team.
you could be a young team and still fight and play hard and get wins. You're well coached. Or you could be a young, undisciplined team that stinks it up. Well, last year they were a veteran team that kind of stunk it up. So it depends. Are they just decimated by injury like 2020, where there's nothing you can do because you can't field the team? So I think it depends.
You know, what if Purdy gets hurt in week 1 and it's an entire season of Jameis Winston?
Don't even speak that into existence.
Hey.
That's a whole other topic for another time. Because
Jameis will throw for 5,000 yards and provide great interviews for you, Larry.
or you go for Mac Jones and you get to play the 2021 what if as your backup quarterback.
How
He's
about
more
this?
scared than Tom Brady.
How about this? If Brock Purdy gets hurt, or if the Niners go with Mac Jones as the backup quarterback and Brock Purdy gets hurt, and Mac Jones comes in and plays well, let's say plays well up 2-3 games, how many weeks will it take before Kyle Shanahan admits, you know what, I actually really wanted Mac Jones all along in 2021?
Yeah.
My guess is I put the over-under on 3.5. I would say if Mac comes in and plays good for 3 games, going into that 4th game, Kyle will be like, you know what? This was the guy that I wanted after all.
Mm-hmm.
I could see it. I'll be interested. You know, it'll be interesting, guys. It'll be interesting to see who that third quarter or who that quarterback is that they bring in. Is it somebody who's going to, be there for Brock Purdy, like a Joe Flacco, a veteran who he can lean on? Or is it somebody who's got a future and would maybe like to start, like a Mac Jones? Or, I was thinking somebody was saying Justin Fields in one of the streams the other day, and I'm like, I can't picture the Niners going with Justin Fields because I think you'd have to pay him quite a bit. I can't see them paying him quite a bit. But Winston's interesting. He does throw for a lot of yards. He had 3. He barely played last year, but he still had 3 games where he had 3 interceptions. So he's, he'll turn it over. But he also had a game where he threw for almost 500 yards.
Mm-hmm.
He's the modern day Steve DeBerg. Like, you're either getting 500 yards or 40. Like, there's no in between.
I kind of like him, actually. I kind of like.
Yeah, no, it's nothing bad.
I kind of like him. I kind of liked
great.
him at the Super Bowl too. The way he was driving
God.
people around and he was giving them rides. He was singing.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I you know what? An old football scout told me there's a race for every quarterback that enters the NFL, and the race is, can you learn what to do before your body gets broken by playing on a bad team? Because almost all the best quarterbacks go to bad teams. And I can see what he means by that now because, guys like Geno Smith and Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, I'm starting to see it a little bit with Drew Lock. Some of these guys that were like, they played initially, they played early, they were bombs, they were busts, and then they kind of figured it out. And you know what? Geno, say whatever you want. I mean, he's had a whole nother chapter. Same with Darnold, same with Baker. Why couldn't Jameis be that guy? Why couldn't Jameis have a whole nother chapter? His body has not been broken. He's still a relatively young man. He's 6'4", 230. He's got a great arm.
Strong. Yeah.
Now that he recognizes the patterns, it's like at first it's all like, oh my gosh, it's like taking Spanish 2 and you never took Spanish 1. You're like, oh my God, I can't do this. But once you start to see the patterns and you start to see the coverages and you go through enough mental reps, after a while, you start to get it down. It's not rocket science. And I just feel like that's why I've always been a believer that Trey Lance will eventually get there. It may take him some more time, but I think Jameis is interesting. I would be in favor of Jameis as the backup. I think he's better than Dobbs. I think he's better than Brandon Allen.
Yeah, I agree with you. Krug, I know you have to go because you're going over to Niners Nightly.
Niners Nightly at 6 on KMBR tonight.
Yeah, we have some supers. So if you want to go through them.
Sure.
Grow Montana. Rams also have a new look with Cooper Kupp gone.
Devontae and Tutu and Puka.
Lou Sassol. Kyle and John took the team they built from scraps to the Super Bowl with Jimmy G, and we have better stars now. We good.
So
We are.
don't fall for this one. I fell for this the other day. This Lou Sassol. Very creative. Very
Uh-huh.
creative.
Well done.
Let's see. We got another one. Niners are going to be okay. Yep. Took the team led by Jimmy G to the Super Bowl. Brock is the Tom Brady of Jimmy G's.
There you go.
Do you think Lou is actually like on the coaching staff, or do you think?
And Lou also says, when are they paying my sweet prince, Brock?
They're paying him now. He's on the payroll. There you go.
Yeah, he's gonna be paid. He's paid right this second.
He's being paid right
James
now.
says, I know Eli had to go, but he was a Warrior in 2021, played through injury, and was awesome. Please pour one out for 25. Just saying.
Big man's
Elijah Mitchell.
game, small man's body. You know, he kind of runs upright. He takes some hits. And, you know, it's funny. He's one of the weirdest players because he was billed as a speedster. He runs 4.33. And yet he doesn't really play to that. But what he is, he's just so efficient. And he never fumbles, and he'll be a good back for Kansas City. But, you know, I don't blame the Niners for not paying him because, as I said, he runs kind of upright. He takes hits, and he's a small guy. He's 200 pounds, and he's just been hurt a lot.
Frederick, it kind of feels like when Balky was about to leave the 49ers in 2016, he was dumping everybody.
Yeah.
And Ryan's a new member.
I always give a little golf clap to the new members.
Nice.
There you go.
All right. Larry Kruger from the Krug Show. Krug, thank you so much for coming back.
Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I can see the top level. It's YOUSHOULDSTAYFA. Is that ITHFUL? There you go.
How many of
should
you
stay
passed the
faithful.
eye test? Yep. You should stay faithful.
Guys, have a great night.
You too, Larry.
Love what you guys do. Anytime you need me or like me on your show, just give me a shout. Love to pop on.
Take
Will
it easy,
do,
man.
Larry. Thank you so
sir.
much.
Take care, guys. Have a good night.
See
Yeah,
ya.
you too. All right. Larry Kruger from the Krug Show.
That's right.
All right. Anything else, guys?
I think we hit everything, and apparently you can't get back from the void this evening. So
Yeah, I know.
She's got a
All right, let's
reboot
go
or
to that,
something. Yeah.
Yeah, I got to like restart and stuff. Let's go that hurry up offense in the 2-minute warning.
Doom.
Yeah, Maddie.
Boom.
we are entirely too many days away from the NFL draft, so please don't get too high or too low about anything. There is a long way to go on this roller coaster ride, so don't let the first couple of days get you down. There's still a few different players out there that can be of help. Aziz Ojolari, anyone, as part of the folks that I would like to get in here. I think there's a lot of turnover. I think they can do well in the draft this year. I think this is a really good draft to have needs in. So follow what it says on Ty's shirt.
Yes. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Thanks for tuning in, both on Larry's channel and our channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe on both channels. Join us next week. I should have my camera back up and running. Happy first anniversary to Jenna and Brock Purdy. They celebrated their first wedding anniversary.
Cool.
Congrats to them. And we will see you next week. As always, go Niners and tie her up.
Yeah, you don't win Super Bowls in March. It's a long way to go. And this team still has some all pros and stars on it. It has not been gutted. So the sky is not falling. We're in a great position and we're just getting started. So hang in there and stay faithful.
Yep. All right. We're out. See you next week. Go Niners.
See ya.
And of course, for the upstart 49ers, they're 6 yards away from Pontiac. 3rd and 3.
We'll see a pickup sometime on the right side, possibly.
Montana looking.